October 8, 1943. 28,000 feet above the German border, Luftwaffe ace Heinz Knoke banked his Focke-Wulf 190 into position. Below him, a formation of American B-17 bombers crawled across the sky like slow, fat targets. The sun glinted off his canopy. His guns were loaded. He'd done this 42 times before. He was about to make it 43. Then Knoke saw something that made him laugh out loud. 8 American fighters climbed up from below. The new P-47 Thunderbolts. He'd heard about these things. Every German pilot had heard about them. They looked ridiculous. The fuselage was as wide as a barrel. The whole plane looked swollen, bloated, like someone had pumped it full of air. German pilots called it the Jug, short for juggernaut, but really they meant milk jug. It looked absurd. Knoke wasn't worried. His 190 was sleek, fast, agile. These American planes looked like flying pigs. Too heavy to turn, too slow to catch him, too big to dodge. He'd heard they weighed 7 tons empty. 7 tons! His plane weighed less than 4. The British Spitfire weighed even less. How could the Americans be stupid enough to build a fighter that heavy? He radioed his wingman, "Let's show these Americans how real fighters work." Then, everything went wrong. The P-47s didn't climb toward him. They dove, straight down from above. Knoke hadn't seen them up there. 8 more Thunderbolts 5,000 feet higher, dropping like anvils. They came down fast, faster than anything Knoke had ever seen. He yanked his stick hard left. His wingman Carl pulled right. The Americans didn't turn to chase them. They didn't need to. They just kept their guns pointed straight ahead and let their speed close the distance. The sound hit first. Not the quick pop, pop, pop of machine guns. Something deeper, heavier. A roar like thunder. Carl's plane came apart. The wing ripped off. The fuselage crumpled. 1 second it was there. Next second just fire and smoke and pieces tumbling through the sky. Knoke's radio crackled with screams. 2 more German planes exploded. Then a 4th. The Americans had been in firing range for maybe 3 seconds. 4 German fighters were gone. Knoke survived. He dove for the ground and ran for home with his engine screaming. That night back at base, he learned the truth. Each P-47 carried 8 machine guns. Not the rifle caliber guns most fighters used. These were .50 caliber, massive bullets as thick as your thumb and as long as your hand. Each gun fired 800 rounds per minute. That meant over 6,000 rounds per minute from a single P-47. When 8 P-47s fired together, that was 48,000 rounds per minute. The Americans weren't flying fighters. They were flying battleships. In the next 18 months, P-47 Thunderbolts would shoot down more enemy planes than any other American fighter in the European theater. Over 3,000 German aircraft were destroyed. The plane German pilots mocked as too big and too slow became their worst nightmare. This is the story of how they learned they'd made a terrible mistake. The Germans had good reason to feel confident in 1943. They'd been winning for years. Their Messerschmitt 109 had dominated the skies over Poland, over France, over Britain during the early years. Luftwaffe pilots were the best trained in the world. They had combat experience. They had victories. Some German aces had over 100 kills each. When American bombers started showing up over Europe, the Germans shot them down in droves. The early American fighter, the P-39 era Cobra, was a joke. Too slow, couldn't climb high enough. German pilots called them easy kills. Then came the P-38 Lightning. Better, but still not great. It had 2 engines, 2 tails, and looked like nothing else in the sky. But it wasn't very maneuverable. A skilled German pilot could still take one down. So when the P-47 showed up in early 1943, German pilots took one look and laughed. The thing was huge, 13 feet long, 42 feet wide. It looked pregnant. It looked wrong. One German pilot wrote in his diary, "The Americans have sent us flying refrigerators. Do they expect us to be scared of these things?" They thought it would be slow. Heavy planes are always slow, right? They thought it couldn't turn. Big planes can't dogfight. They thought it would be easy to shoot down. A bigger target is easier to hit. They were wrong about everything. Republic Aviation had built something completely different. The P-47 had the biggest engine ever put in a fighter plane at that time. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp. 2,800 horsepower. That's more power than 3 German fighter engines combined. The whole plane was built around that monster engine. That's why it looks so fat. It needed a huge fuselage to fit the engine and all the cooling equipment. That engine made the P-47 fast in ways German pilots didn't understand. In level flight, it could hit 430 miles per hour. That matched most German fighters. But in a dive, the P-47 could hit 550 miles per hour. Nothing the Germans had could dive that fast. The thick wings and heavy weight that made it look clumsy actually made it stable at high speed. German fighters would shake themselves apart trying to match a P-47 in a dive. And those 8 guns, those beautiful, terrible guns. The 50 caliber M2 Browning was designed to shoot through tank armor. These weren't weapons meant for planes. They were weapons meant for killing tanks and trucks and buildings. But the Americans mounted 8 of them in the P-47's wings, 4 in each wing. Each gun had 400 rounds. That's 3,200 rounds total per plane. A single 50 caliber bullet weighed almost 2 ounces. It left the barrel at almost 3,000 feet per second. When it hit an airplane, it didn't just punch a hole. It destroyed whatever it touched. One bullet could rip off a propeller blade. 2 or 3 could tear apart an engine. A short burst sawed a wing in half. The Germans learned this the hard way on October 13, 1943. Over the North Sea, a group of P-47s from the 56th Fighter Group encountered 12 Messerschmitt 109s. The German formation leader, a pilot named Rolf, had 16 kills. He was good. He was confident. He saw the P-47s and called out attack orders. The P-47s didn't run. They climbed. The Germans climbed after them, expecting the heavy American planes to slow down and stall out. Instead, the P-47s kept climbing. Rolf's 109 started to shudder. He was at his ceiling, his plane barely holding altitude. The P-47s were still climbing. Then they turned around and came down. Rolf's wingman died first, a 2-second burst from Major Hub Zemke's guns. The 109 exploded so violently that Rolf felt the heat wave from 300 yards away. He broke left. Another P-47 was already there, waiting. He saw the muzzle flashes. His canopy shattered. His instrument panel exploded. His left arm went numb. He didn't know he'd been hit. The plane was falling. He couldn't feel his legs. He pulled the canopy release and the wind tore him out. His parachute opened. He watched his beautiful 109 spiral into the ocean. Below him, 5 more German planes were falling. The entire battle had lasted 90 seconds. The numbers started adding up. In December 1943, P-47 shot down 82 German planes while losing only 6 of their own. In January, 97 to 8. In February, 113 to 11. German pilots started calling in sick. Some refused to fly when they knew P-47s were in the area. It wasn't cowardice. It was math. You can't win when you're being killed 13 to 1. But the real shock to the Germans wasn't how good the P-47 was. It was how many of them there were. American factories built 15,000 P-47 Thunderbolts during the war. 15,000! Germany built 33,000 fighters of all types during the entire war. America built 15,000 of just this one model. Just the P-47. Every month, hundreds of new P-47s arrived in Europe. Every month, more American pilots finished training. The Germans shot down P-47s. Lots of them. But it didn't matter. More kept coming. Always more. German ace Gunther Rall shot down 3 P-47s in 1 week. He was proud until he learned that America had built 60 new ones that same week. "We were trying to empty the ocean with a bucket," he said after the war. German pilot Franz Stigler had a moment that changed him forever. April 1944 over France. He was chasing a damaged P-47 trying to limp back to England. The American pilot was good. He dodged, he weaved, he dove into clouds. Stigler followed. He was patient. He'd get this kill. Then his own plane shook. The radio went dead. The engine sputtered. He looked back. 2 more P-47s shooting at him. He hadn't seen them, hadn't heard them on the radio. They'd been hunting him while he hunted their friend. Stigler's plane was dying. He couldn't eject over enemy territory. He turned for home, losing altitude, trailing smoke. The P-47s followed him. They could have killed him easily. Instead, they escorted him to the German border, then turned back. Later, Stigler learned why. The damaged P-47 he'd been chasing made it home. The 2 P-47s that saved their friend and let Stigler live were following orders. Stay with your wingman. Protect your guys. The mission matters more than the kill. That moment taught Stigler something that terrified him. American pilots weren't trying to be heroes. They weren't trying to be aces. They were following a system. They had more planes, more fuel, more bullets, more pilots, more of everything. And they had a plan. They worked together. They covered each other. They thought about the mission, not personal glory. How do you beat that? You don't. You can't. By summer of 1944, the Luftwaffe was dying. German pilots were being killed faster than new ones could be trained. The veterans were either dead or exhausted. The new kids lasted about 5 missions on average. Meanwhile, American pilots had time to learn. They made mistakes and survived because they had wingman. They had backup. They had spare planes and spare parts and spare everything. The P-47 did more than just shoot down German planes. It bombed German tanks and trucks and trains. Those 8 50 caliber guns could shred vehicles on the ground just as easily as planes in the air. P-47s destroyed 9,000 locomotives, 6,000 German tanks, 68,000 trucks. They bombed bridges and supply depots and radar stations. German soldiers called them Jabo, short for a Jagdbomber, hunter bomber. They hated the sound of that big radial engine. When they heard it, they ran. One German tank commander wrote about watching a P-47 attack. It came from behind a hill, very low, very fast. I screamed for my men to take cover. The guns sounded like a giant tearing cloth. Our half-track exploded. Our supply truck exploded. My radio operator was cut in half. The whole attack took maybe 5 seconds. Then it was gone. We couldn't even shoot back. Too fast, too low, too much firepower. We just died. Hans Knoke, the pilot from the beginning of this story, survived the war. Barely. He was shot down 4 times, wounded twice. By 1945, he stopped keeping track of how many Americans he'd seen. There were too many. In his memoir, he wrote about the day he knew Germany would lose. It wasn't after a battle. It wasn't after his friends died. It was the day he saw 300 P-47s flying in formation over Germany. 300 in one formation. We could never do that, he wrote. We never had 300 fighters in one place. Not ever. Not even at the beginning. And these were just the Americans. The British had their own. The numbers made me want to cry. German factories built about 60 planes per week at their peak. American factories built 60 P-47s per week. Just P-47s, not counting P-51s or P-38s or any other fighter. Not counting bombers. Not counting trainers. Just P-47s, 60 per week. Every week for years. The plane German pilots called the Jug killed more of them than any other American fighter in Europe. Final count, 3,752 German aircraft destroyed in air-to-air combat. Thousands more were destroyed on the ground. 9 P-47 pilots became aces in a single day. That means they shot down 5 or more enemy planes in one mission. 29 P-47 pilots finished the war with over 15 kills each. But here's the real number that should have told the Germans everything. The Americans lost fewer than 500 P-47s in air-to-air combat. That's a kill ratio of almost 8 to 1. For every P-47 shot down, 8 German planes died. No Air Force can survive that math. No country can win that war. After the war, Luftwaffe General Adolf Galland was interviewed by American officers. They asked him what he thought when he first saw the P-47. He smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. He said, "We thought you were stupid. We thought you didn't know how to build fighters. We were the stupid ones. You built exactly what you needed. Something that could take damage and keep flying. Something with enough firepower to kill anything. Something you could build fast and build thousands of. We built beautiful planes. You built winners." Hans Knoke survived, moved to Argentina after the war, never flew again. In 1992, an interviewer asked him about the P-47. Knoke was 73 years old. He stared out the window for a long time. He said, "I can still hear them. That engine sound, that gun sound. I hear it in my sleep sometimes. People say we were brave. Maybe. But we were also wrong. So completely wrong. We saw that fat, ugly plane and we laughed. Then it killed all our friends. That's the lesson. That's what I learned." Never underestimate the Americans. Never. The P-47 Thunderbolt. German pilots called it the Jug. American pilots called it the Jug too, but they meant it with love. It brought them home. It won the war. And it taught the Luftwaffe that size doesn't matter nearly as much as firepower, speed, and having 15,000 of something instead of just a few hundred. Thanks for watching. Next time we'll look at another weapon the Axis powers thought they could handle until it completely destroyed them. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And remember, in war, the side that can build more, build better, and build faster usually wins. The Germans learned that lesson too late. Their pilots paid the price.